You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Dan Gaynor is with us. He is the Vice President of the Business and Media Institute, businessandmedia.org, the website. Also a T. Boone Pickens Fellow there. And Dan, first of all, welcome back to our show.
It's always a pleasure, and Happy New Year to you and everybody listening.
Well, thank you, Dan, and the same to you and your family and friends and associates. Dan, Joe the plumber says that reporters should not report, and that they actually shouldn't. He, who has now become a war correspondent, says that reporters should not go into war zones and should not report on wars because, after all, those images that we see in newsreels that let us know what's going on, which come from reporters, somehow don't come from reporters, or something like that. I never quite did figure out exactly what he was saying, but he says basically reporters shouldn't report. My comment to you, since you're suggesting that the media's reporting on the Second Republican Great Depression is what's causing it, my question to you is, et tu, Brute?
Well, first of all, let's get a couple things straight. We're not in a depression. Ben Bernanke, who's unlike either one of us, a professional economist and an expert on the Great Depression, says we're nowhere near it. Unemployment is 6.7% to the last time. Now it's 7.2. Maybe we'll get there. There's certainly a lot of wrong-headed ideas in Washington from both parties that may push us there. But and yes, the media have pushed us there. What they're reporting on right now, they got an economy in trouble. They should be reporting it, just as you should report from a war zone. But how you report is an important thing. When you report in 2004 warning about a recession that doesn't happen until nearly 2008, you have an impact. When you report in 2005, a year when 2 million jobs were added, which by even Paul Krugman's definition meets the standard of what you need for a growing economy, when you do that, and the network news shows, ABC, CBS, and NBC, do more than half their stories about job losses, it has an impact. It's the same impact that you hope that your advertisers, have when they do a commercial endlessly. What your advertisers selling, hopefully very good products that your listeners will buy.
So the problem is people in the media who are out there scaring the hell out of people. Should the media have refused to cover George W. Bush when he got up behind the podium and said that we are at risk of entering something as bad as the Great Depression?
No, of course not. But what they should do...
Henry Paulson, is he one of the fear-mongers here?
Well, actually, Henry Paulson is a guy who needs a PR guy because, Henry Paulson is...
Henry Paulson needs a lobotomy.
But see, you're assuming that people reporting what's going on now is what we're talking about, and it's not. People reported on... If you helped lay the groundwork for economy, and I mean, look back to 2007 when you had, and you don't have to like Neil Cavuto, how about Maria Bartiromo, one of the most well-known financial journalists in television, warning people that we're in danger of talking ourselves into a recession.
Dan, I think you were just absolutely going the wrong way down this railroad track here, and it's just going to smack you into a wall. I mean, back in 83, when Reagan did his tax cut, 82 and 83, when Reagan did his tax cut, there were people who were saying, that high top marginal tax rate and reasonable taxes on business are stabilizers for the economy. You pull those things out, you're going to have a crash. He pulled them out, he had a crash. He had to double taxes on working people. He had to pass the largest tax increase in the history of the world in order to pull us out of that crash, and we've been burdened with that ever since. And then he had to start borrowing from Social Security on the sly with Alan Greenspan's help and basically lie to us about it. And then even that didn't work, and he had to borrow more money during the 8 years of his presidency than every president combined since George Washington. We have had 28 years of failed conservative economic policies that are compounding each other year after year after year, and then you add to that insane trade policies, which have been cheerleaded by both Republicans and Democrats like Bill Clinton, this so-called free trade, and all of this has hollowed out our industrial infrastructure. It has hollowed out our economy. We may be creating jobs, but do you want fries with that? Jobs rather than good jobs that actually pay a decent living. And you're suggesting that we should not be reporting on this? Come on, Dan.
you're completely misrepresenting. Frankly, I think you're misrepresenting the economy and what I said. So let me address both of those. Misrepresenting the economy, you act like the United States is an island, and another one of the people wants to throw up walls and throw up trade barriers and not admit that we're part of a global economy.
You are absolutely right.
We are part of a global economy.
No, you are absolutely right about me. I am an America first guy. I believe in the United States of America, and I think every other country around the world should also put themselves first. I think it's incumbent. That's the reason why we have nation states. And I want to say that we should be doing for America what's best for America. I think it's outrageous that Hewlett-Packard, for example, just to pull a name out of the air because Carly Fiorina was so visible during the John McCain campaign as the hero of economics, that Hewlett-Packard can shut down their factories in the United States, open factories in China, manufacture stuff in China, ship it over here with labor that's 50 cents an hour, $1 an hour, keep their profits outside the United States, never pay a damn penny of U.S. income tax on all that profit as long as they keep it outside the United States. And somehow that's considered rational policy? That's destroying this country, Dan.
It's you're trying to say that we need to compete in a situation in a global environment where companies are global, where companies have offices and have businesses.
I'm saying we need to do the same thing that Korea does, South Korea, the same thing that Japan does, and the same thing that China does, by the way. China has import tariffs. If you take a U.S. car, General Motors wants to sell a car in China, they either A, have to have a 50-50 partner with a Chinese corporation, which they do, by the way, or they have to pay a 22% import tax when that car hits the shore in China. If China wants to sell a car in the United States, no problem. No problem. Bring it in. Put some more of our people out of work. We're nuts. We've been following this insanity since Reagan became president, and it's destroying our country. And you're saying that reporting on this is somehow creating the second Republican Great Depression?
I'm saying what, frankly, 3/4 of the American public in the recent poll agreed with, is that the media are making it worse. That the media, that downbeat reporting, when you tell people a good economy, when you have unemployment below 5%, which most economists consider to be as low as you can go, when you have unemployment below 5%, when you have consistent growth, when you have 52 straight months of positive job growth, as we did under Bush, for all your arguments one way or the other, and he's not my favorite president either, but 52 months of positive job growth, when you have those things and the media are talking recession, then when things get a little worse and then they flip over and start talking depression.
Dan, we had 3 straight years of positive job growth during the Great Depression in the 1930s. It's like, you've been dropped into a hole and now you're slowly crawling your way out of it. Isn't that great? He's climbing up. I mean, from 1933, until 1937, you had pretty steady job growth. In fact, by 1937, we were almost back to where we were in 29. And then Roosevelt, taking the advice of Republicans and conservatives, pulled out some of his WPA programs, and boom, the bottom fell out again.
Unemployment is not below 5%. Is not a Great Depression, metaphor.
Well, it all depends on how you calculate unemployment.
For several years during the Bush presidency. So to be talking recession when that's going on, and then to flip over as soon as unemployment just now passed where it was during the Clinton administration. Just now.
You realize during the Clinton administration they changed how you calculate unemployment.
Yeah.
So you're comparing apples and oranges.
No, because I'm talking about it was 7.1 during the Clinton administration. It's 7.2 now. And so to say, suddenly when that happens...
But back then, that 7.1 included people who today are not being counted, Dan. They included people who are called discouraged workers. We've got about 3 or 4 million people out there who are saying, I can't find a job. I've given up and my employment benefits have run out. They're no longer considered unemployed. They were considered unemployed during the first 2 years of the Clinton administration.
But if you go back to the Great Depression numbers, you really want to compare apples to apples, a lot of the Great Depression numbers weren't exactly all-inclusive either. They really only cared about white men, whether they had employment. They cared less about minorities, and they certainly cared less about women. So, if you want to compare apples to apples,
I'm not saying we're as bad as we were in 1933. I'm saying that we're heading in that direction because of the economic policies that you guys are promoting.
I mean, Tom, for all that you and I might disagree with, I don't think you are saying they were in a Great Depression. But when I watch a nightly news report, as I saw just the other night, talking about, and this is what they do every single time, they had a movie story. Oh, people are going to the movies. People went to a lot of movies during the Great Depression, too. And that's exactly the theme. And they did it all last year. And so they convinced people. And we have this measure. We know they're convincing people because we have a consumer confidence index. it's at a 40-year low. And
maybe it's at a 40-year low because people have maxed out their credit cards. They've taken all the money they can out of their home. They know they can't get a loan anymore. They can't afford gasoline. I mean, maybe that's why.
Or maybe it also has something to do with the fact that we buy advertising. We listen to what advertisers tell us. We also listen to what the news media tells us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, people can read your article, The Great Media Depression, over at businessandmedia.org. Dan Gaynor, the VP of the Business and Media Institute. Dan, always a pleasure mixing it up with you.
It is indeed for myself, too.
Thank you, Dan. 16 minutes past the hour.